Welcome to today's episode. Last few videos we discussed about theoretical part of Dockers. So if you give a promise, you should keep it. Last video I promised you that I am going to show you how we can do all those things concept in practical. I am going to start that from today onwards. What I am going to do I am going to show you from the scratch, from the very beginning, how you can download Docker, how you can install, how you can create your first container, and how you can port your program onto your container, and how you can run it, right? And run many containers, how you can run multiple containers, and how you can do container orchestration using some kind of container orchestration technology. So it is not easy to show you all those things in a single day, in a single video. So what I am going to do is I am going to create multiple videos to cover all those things. Today's topic is how you can install and create your very first Docker container on your machine. Before we go there, I need to tell you, as usual, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. So in that case, you get two things: one, you don't miss future videos; two, you help others to find this channel. You don't have to have any prior knowledge about Docker or any containerization technology, but if you don't understand this concept, I am going to do a 5-minute recap today in this video, but I would strongly recommend go ahead and watch some videos what I have done previously. So there would be a microservices playlist in my channel. So go ahead and watch from the same order, so you will get a clear picture about Docker and why we need it and what that can do. Before we begin, I am going to discuss a small topic, maybe taking 2-3 minutes. So I am going to talk about this because of one of incident I faced today. When I am having some discussion today, one of my colleague mentioned some wrong concept about Docker. So I realized, even though you have a lot of experiences, even though you may be very good, very advanced, very experienced developer, you may feel some misconceptions about Dockers. So during one of discussion, he said, if you have a 32 core platform, maybe 32 core host, the ideal number would be 32 containers to create on that host. In other words, the number of Dockers you can create on the host, it should be less than or equal to number of cores in that server, or number of CPUs that server. That is completely wrong idea. That is a complete wrong concept. Because if it is the case, there is no point of having a Docker technology, right? So if your Docker, if your one container take one dedicated CPU, it is then this technology is not used at all. So then how it work? Number of containers and number of cores doesn't relevant each other directly. Docker, people says Docker is a virtual machine. Docker is not a virtual machine. Docker is a container which is another process to operating system. So his argument was, if you create shared, if you create multiple Dockers, more than Dockers what you have in a core, like for example, if you have a 32 cores, if you create 64 Dockers, then Docker start to share the CPU. In that case, if one CPU cause CPU hog, then that will affect on other containers. It is not. By default, it would happen. You can do that. It would happen if you run out of the box containers, out of the box Dockers in production. If you do that, that is your problem, right? So you should not do that at all. So you should configure the Docker in a proper way to run in the production. For example, when you run a Docker, you can give the instruction, hey, I need this much of time for this container. In other words, Docker use a principle called allocate and share. That means you can do process allocation for your container. Let's say like this. So you are running a container, you are saying, hey, I need to allocate this much of microseconds for this container from the processing power. Then what happens is, let's say you you are saying, okay, out of 100,000 microsecond, I need 15,000 microsecond for this container. So what happens is then Docker engine will take care of allocating that processing power processor into your CPU into your container. In that case, your container is not going to hug at all. Even though your container running a program which causing a CPU hog, if that is the case, you need to take care of that. That is a problem. But even though you that happens, what the content like what happens is, since you properly allocated CPU allocation time to your container, it won't affect on other containers, because no matter how much CPU you want, it won't go beyond your allocation, right? If it get 500 let's say 1500 or 15,000 microsecond for your container, in that case it won't exceed that. That is number one. Number two, usually kernels has a process called nice and renice, right? So that means you may have a 32 cores, but that does not say you can run only 32 processors on your machine. So what happens is, when you have a multiple processors, I mean a more than processor than what you have in a core, the kernel take care of allocating your processor or otherwise CPU into your thread, right, into your process. In that case, that process is already there. So don't worry about creating more than containers, multiple containers than what you have in your CPU. There is no direct relevance for that. So if you want, you can refer Docker documentation. So they have in detail parameters, how you can allocate a processing CPU to your container, and so far so forth. Not only CPU, you can do the same thing with memory as well, right? So the next question comes with memory, right? If you have a 8 GB memory, and then you can create only 8 Dockers, that because of one container need 1 GB. That's not work like that. So if you do that, what happens is, then one of my other friend told me when we discussed this later. So he says, his theory is exactly true. He says, if you have a 32 cores and if you can only create a 32 containers, then if you need to spawn out 33 or 35 or 40 containers, then you need to attach other server, other physical box, right? So if that is the case, this technology is not going to work. So there is no rule like that, so don't worry about it. So I just told that because it doesn't matter how long experience you have, right? Even for me, I don't know everything about the Docker. There are so many things I don't know. If I know very simple thing, very simple amount, then there is huge portion that I don't know. That's okay. That's always okay. Now we are going to install Docker on your local machine. Since I'm going to demonstrate Mac, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen if you install with the Windows. If you're going to install on a Windows, you need to have operating system at least Windows 10. If you don't have Windows 10, there is other framework called Docker Toolbox. You can Google like this, okay. So you can Google as Docker Toolbox. In that case, it will take you to Toolbox. So here also you can download. Since I am browsing from a Mac, I'm not going to download this because I can install Docker directly into my computer. So you can download this, right, and work with this. But if you download that, when you install, you face few problems. Number one, how it works first. So what it does is, it will install Docker Toolbox to your computer along with VirtualBox, and it install Linux image into your VirtualBox. This happen background automatically. You don't have to do anything, right? You just need to click standard software application process for this downloaded Docker Toolbox. That's it. So it will take care of everything. So what happens is, it install a VirtualBox and it install Linux image to that. So whenever you run Docker commands on your local terminal, it passes that to your virtual machine, okay. So that virtual machine, that Linux image what is in the virtual machine, will process that command on that Linux machine, right. You don't have to log into that. You can run Docker command as usual on your terminal. Then after you install Docker toolbox in the Windows, what you need to do is you need to run environment command on your Docker machine, right? You have to start the Docker machine first, then you need to run environment command. So in that case, it will give you some instruction if you need to execute, it's like this. So you run a Docker machine environment command on your terminal. So in that case, it will give the report, what are the variables and what are the things it's used. Then end of that line, you may have some instruction, hey, go ahead and execute this command. So you can copy and execute that command on your terminal itself. So in that case, from there onwards, you are ready to use it. But if you are behind the proxy, if you do try to do this in your office, and if you are behind the proxy, you may need to export the proxy in order to download the Docker images. But the interesting thing, and not interesting, confusing thing is, if you configure proxy on your local machine, that doesn't work. What you should do is you should go to your VirtualBox Linux image and configure your proxy over there. Because how you can do that, you can type just docker machine space ssh, so it will automatically log into your VirtualBox Linux image, and then you can export proxy from there. It's just a standard Linux command. So with that, you can use this Docker on your Windows machine. If you come across any specific problem, you can go ahead and comment. I may be able to help you to solve those, or you may have enough online resources to solve those problems. Okay. So now let's see how we can do this with Linux. If you are using Mac OS, let's see how you can do this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to docker.com, right? So there you have you can see a link called get start, right? So I go there, then I can download for Mac. So it says I need to have at least Mac 10.10.3. So as I remember, I have a Mac 10.12, so I'm compatible. Yeah, I'm compatible with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download for Mac. For this, I'm going to save in a desktop because I don't want to show you what are the files I have downloaded so far if I download to my download folder. Right. So this is the first time also I'm also going to install this. So there may be a small problems. We'll see how it goes. Okay. So show in folder. It's just a standard Docker image. So I can run Docker now. Okay. So it says Docker is application. Yeah, I know it is an application which downloaded from internet. So it says next, it needs privilege access. So it asks my password. Okay. So Docker is starting. Okay, open your favorite terminal and just type Docker commands. Okay, got it. Okay, so now I'm going to move into my home dev directory. Okay, so I'm going to create a directory called Docker, right? So I'm going to go into Docker, right? I'm going to create a directory called sample. Oops. Right. So I'm going to sample, right. So now this is important. You are going to create a file. The standard is because you need to tell give some file into Docker to work, right. This is called Docker configuration file. The standard way is to create a file as a Docker file, right. So I'm going to create a file like Docker file. So D capital Docker file. So this is the standard way to create a file. So I just created a file. So now it's just empty file. So now I'm going to configure this file in order to work with Docker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this file in my favorite editor, not my favorite editor, this is easy to work, right. So, now, so what I am going to do is the first line, it should be, right, the first line is from. So, that means, okay. So, you may remember we discussed a Docker, you can create a Docker image and you can store Dockers in a Docker repository. So, with this from command, what we are going to tell, hey, go to our repository and download this particular image. So, what I am going to use here as a sample for today, Ubuntu image, right, Ubuntu latest. So, this after this colon, what you mention is your version. If you have a, let us say, Ubuntu version 13.04, 14.04, 15.04, something like that. So, you can download a specific Docker image to your machine, right. So, what it does is when you say from, it go to Docker Hub and it go Docker repository, whatever the Docker repository you configured, and download this image for you, right. So, now I have a Docker image, right. So, now in my machine. So, now first I am going to show you very simple command, maybe ls, right, or let us say print something, right, echo. So, how you can do this? You can ask Docker to create a command directory if you want, right. So, how you can do is run mkdir, right. So, I need to create a directory on my home, right. So, dev docker sample and test, okay. So, that is my one of step to do, right. Then I am going to show you if it is not working and why it is not working and everything, right. So, then I am going to run another command called cmd, right. So, you know, if you are familiar with any scripting framework, you know how this, what this command is. So, I am going to say echo, right, hello Docker, how are you? Oh, you are awesome, right. So, that is it, my command. For moment I am going to remove this one, because then it would be easy to understand, right. So, that is it, right. So, what I am saying, go ahead, download the Ubuntu and run this command on Ubuntu, right. So, I am going to save that file, right. So, only that file I have. So, now I am going to say docker build, right. So, when you build the Docker, you need to give a place from which folder you are going to build. So, from this folder. So, now you can see it is going to download Ubuntu image from my computer, right. It is pulling from Ubuntu. So, now it is done, it is its latest version. So, it is downloaded and you can see here, right. So, it is download complete, right, Ubuntu latest. So, then my command cmd echo hello Docker, you are awesome, oh, spell mistake, that is fine, and it is altered this container, right. It's running on this container and it's altered. So, now removing intermediate container. So, because it's downloaded Ubuntu and it's you can see it's downloaded Ubuntu, then it's altered this container. So, now this is intermediate container, right. So, now what it's going to do is it finalize my container with this hash and it's remove this container from temporary space. So, now I am done, right. I built my very first container. So, now what I am going to do is I am going to run this docker run. If you want to give a name, you can give a name like this. If you do not want, that is also fine, but you may need this hash. If you gave a name, then you do not need, otherwise you need this hash, right, and paste, right. So, now it is a hello Docker, you are awesome, okay. This is permission, that is fine. So, now from next time onward, this will be little different, just see. So, now I am going to alter Docker file, I am going to fix my spelling mistake, plus I am going to type I like you, right. So, now Docker Ubuntu image is already there in your machine. So, now it will not try to pick that image. So, let us see how it's work now. So, I need to build it again, right, Docker build from here. So, now nothing, no, it is not going to download anything, but it is going to create an image from my change text, right. So, now I am going to run this again, it will give me an error, that is fine, right. I am going to show you this, that is why I am purposely making that mistake, right. It will tell me, hey, you already have a name called Krish. So, let us remove that. So, now again you are going to run. So, now you can see it's run updated text. So, now I am going to play a little bit with this, right. So, what I am going to do is now instead of Ubuntu latest, what I am going to do is I am going to specify the version 4.04. I think I may have this, we will say, right. So, now I am going to build this again. Okay, first I need to remove Docker, then I need to build this. Okay, so now it is going to download again, because 14.04 is not the latest version. So, now it downloaded latest version, maybe 16 or 17, I can't remember exact version, but it is now downloading 4. So, now it is building other image, alright. So, now Docker run minus name equal okay. So, now it is worked on other server, right, other Docker image. So, this is how you can create very simple commands on your machine. So, now on your Docker, right. So, now let us play little more. Okay. So, I am going to little bit tweak this file now. So, what I am going to do is I am going to create mkdir var Krish, right. So, then work dir var Krish, and I need to run a command saying pwd, that is a command I want to run, right. So, what I am going to do is now I am going to build this, first I am going to remove this Docker. So, whatever currently running, right. So, I am going to build this Docker, oops, oh, I think my file is wrong, let us go and fix this. Yeah, you can have a command like this, you need to tell what is going to do with it, run, okay. I am sorry about it. So, let us say okay, other mistake. Let us build it. Now it is building, okay, and now I am going to run my Docker. Okay, ideally it should print its path, copy and paste it. Yes, oh, it did not print it. We will see why it's happened. Maybe this line is clear out the first line. We will see. I'm going to remove this one. Okay, so now I'm going to remove this and build and run it. Okay. So, you can see its print its path. So, you can see here its print var Krish, because it execute this command and it create the directory, and it change the working directory, and then it's print where it's there, where it is. So now we learn how we can create Docker, how you can install Docker on your local computer, and how you can create your very first container, and how you can port a program onto that. So next video, what I'm going to show you how you can write simple program. I'm going to demonstrate with the Java, but you can do with whatever the program you want, Node.js or whatever that you want, but I'm going to demonstrate with the Java. So I'm going to write a simple service, maybe a microservice, and I'm going to show you how you can deploy this Java microservice into the Docker, and how you can run multiple instances. Okay. So practice make perfect. So what you can do is you just download this and onto your local computer and install, and if you come up with any question, just you can reach me. So I will try to help you. Then see you on the next video. Make sure go ahead and subscribe before you hit the close button. Thank you very much.